Hello and welcome to another episode of From the Beginning here on Heavenward Thinking. Today we're continuing on in the book of Exodus. We're looking at Exodus chapter 18. We're going to be starting in verse 13 and we're going to go through the end of the chapter in verse 27, talking about Moses and Jethro. Last week we talked about Jethro visiting Moses. We did the first section of that. This week we are going to do the second section of that and see what we can learn from this passage. Starting in verse 13. The next day Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people, and they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge, while all these people stand around you from morning till evening?" Moses answered him, "Because the people come to me to seek God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it is brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions." Moses' father-in-law replied, "What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions and show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, but have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter because they will share it with you. If you do this, and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied." Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. Then Moses sent his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro returned to his own country. So as we are continuing on here in Exodus chapter 18, we're seeing some advice that Jethro gives to Moses. Moses is getting some great advice from his father-in-law here, who sees all the work that he's doing. He's doing great things. He's listening to the people's cases that they have, and he's giving them God's judgment, God's commands and decrees, teaching them what they need to do, judging between different parties, and saying, here's what we're going to do in this case, in this case, in this case. But while he's doing all these amazing, great things for God, he's going to be eventually getting worn out. His father-in-law sees that. He sees where this path is going to lead, that it may seem like Moses can handle this right now. He's doing all these great things, and it's working for now. He is smart enough to realize that down the road, this is going to lead to complete exhaustion, and it's not going to benefit Moses, and it's not going to benefit the people of Israel. And so he gives him some great advice to appoint other godly leaders, men who can be trusted with the task of judging between easy disputes and then bringing the more complicated cases to Moses to then bring before the Lord. But he is able to then share the load with other people. An important thing for us to realize in our culture, where everything is so focused about you and you doing everything yourself and focus in on just you and what you can do, it's important for us to take a step back and realize that we need other people. As Christians, we're supposed to be a body of believers operating in unison together, each part doing its job to serve the head, that is Christ. We have to remember that we're not just a body that then we do everything ourselves. We're a body that relies on other people, that every part has to do its job, that every part is supposed to share the load, not just one person saying, yeah, I'm the body of Christ and I'll just do it all myself. We're supposed to be a body that is made up of many members, and we see just a great foreshadowing of what the church is today here in the Old Testament, how Moses was given this advice and then implements it, and we see responsibility being shared, a body, if you will, operating here instead of just Moses doing all the responsibilities and taking care of all of these matters himself. He's able to share that with other people. Important for us, not just as a body of believers, but also for people who are in leadership, to remember that if God has placed them in a position of leadership, he doesn't just want them to do everything all by themselves with no help. He wants them to do what he's called them to do, but he's most likely going to put other people in your path to assist you in what he's calling you to do as a group. He's going to have specific things for you to do as an individual, for sure, but he's also going to have things for you to do as a body, working together for him. And we see an important clarification here. It's not just that Jethro is giving Moses these instructions like, hey, I have this great idea, I think you should definitely do this. He's saying, if you do this, and God so commands, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied. We see that there's an important clarification. When we make a decision like this to share the workload, to share things with other people and let them come alongside us, there's an important clause there we have to look at, if God so commands. We need to make sure that when we give tasks to other people, when we share some burden that we have with other people, that it's something that God commands, and it's not just us throwing off our own work on other people. While we need other people, it's not supposed to be just we do whatever we can do and whatever we can't handle, we throw it on other people. It's we carefully seek the Lord's wisdom and His guidance, and if He says, this is what I want you to do, then we need to do that. And so we see that here, that Moses did this. He listened to everything his father-in-law said, and he did it, and it worked out well. Instead of being worn out with the strain of having to do everything by himself, he carefully made sure that what he was doing was appropriate in God's eyes, and then was able to be beneficial for the people of Israel. So key for us to remember that whenever we make a decision, we need to make sure it lines up with what God commands, and then also benefits other people, not just ourselves. Because again, this wasn't just so that Moses didn't have to do a workload, he didn't have to have so much work on his plate. This was so that other people could benefit. So we have to look at that and realize all these different parts together. It wasn't that Moses' father-in-law was just saying, hey, you should, slack off and go relax. This is Moses' father-in-law saying, hey, this is not good for other people. You need to do what is right in the eyes of God. Make sure He wants you to do this. And then how can we benefit not just you, but other people? That's our challenge this week, and I hope that you'll join us next time for another episode of From the Beginning here on Heavenward Thinking.